Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show. Joining you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Thank you as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It is very much appreciated. First things first, I have swapped out the microphone that's been causing us some issues for the old one whilst we await. It's not a new mic, Mr. Robo19 plays. It's the old mic that I've swapped in for the moment until we sort out a new one, because I just can't seemingly rely on that one. However, this is a good chance to kind of test whether or not it's the mic or if it's StreamYard or if it's something. So if we have any mic issues in today's show, we finally will be able to kind of sort out what the issues are. So let's wait and see what happens and what goes on. But yeah, we're bringing in it's like when Matthew Flamini returns, if you like. We've got the Matthew Flamini of microphones. Let's hope he can do a good job and score a brilliant goal in the North London derby, shall we? Good morning, those joining us in the chat box. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Let's go to Matt G. Good morning to you, to Black Shine. Stuart McFarlane, Sesan, PJ. We've got Femi, Oderile, Rich, Aidan, Tony. Good morning to Olu and Kaiser. Runs with Cows, Ray, NSW. Paul, we've got N10 Coffee, we've got Morgie. I feel like some people just name themselves after like brands to promote on my show for free. I mean, it's not a bad idea, but come on. Come on. There are other coffee brands available. Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for doing. I was going to say thank you, everybody, for doing so well. If you are doing well, thank you. If you're not, I'm hoping that the show can put you in a much better place, because my goodness, what a silly day yesterday was. Yesterday was a joke. It was an absolute disgrace of a day regarding football transfers. It was absolutely mental, and it kind of made me wake up this morning and go, what is this? What is today going to throw up? What is it going to throw up to us today? Because I have no idea. But yeah, I guess we'll wait and see. But we're going to talk through all of yesterday's news and, of course, go to your questions in part 2 as well. If you haven't already dropped a like on the video, please make sure that you do that. It takes you just a quick second, and it really does help us out. Let's go to the stories then without further ado. We kick off, and I'm going to kind of do the day, if you like, in chronological order as best I can, because because there's just so much chaos happen. I think covering it as it happened is probably the best way to do so. So at 9 a.m. yesterday, obviously, we saw the Premier League fixtures released officially, and we've got here the list of fixtures. We kick off our season against Nottingham Forest on the 12th of August. We then play against Crystal Palace and Fulham to finish off August. September sees our first test against a big six side, Manchester United, followed by Everton away, a notoriously very difficult game for us. Then the North London derby on the 23rd of September, unless it moves, of course, which I expect it probably will do. The North London derby there on the 23rd probably will move to the 24th of September. We then travel to Bournemouth, which was a pretty comfortable game for us last season, early on again last season, and we have that again away at the Vitality. Then in October, we kick off the big game against Man City, Arsenal actually being able to play their potential title rivals. Who knows where Arsenal will be come next season? We'll have to wait and see. And then Chelsea and Sheffield United at home. November, we have Newcastle away, Burnley at home, Brentford away. December then sees a very, very busy fixture schedule, which includes not only these games, but potentially League Cup games and Champions League group stage games. Wolves at home, Luton away, Aston Villa away, Brighton at home, Liverpool away on the 23rd, and then 3 days later, we play West Ham United at home, Fulham away 2 days before the new year. And then into January, we've got Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest away. February, because obviously January is full of cup games if you're still in those competitions. February returns the Champions League knockouts, and we play Liverpool at home, West Ham away before we play the first round, if indeed we do qualify, of course, the knockouts of the Champions League. Then we have Burnley away, Newcastle at home, Sheffield United away kicks off March. Brentford and Chelsea at home follow. Then it's Manchester City away at the end of March, which means that we've got, I think no, 8 games after Man City still at that point as well. Luton at home, Brighton away, Aston Villa at home, Wolves away and Spurs away is the April matches. And the season finishes off with Bournemouth at home, Manchester United away in the penultimate game of the season. Could Arsenal win the league at Old Trafford again? We'll have to wait and see. And Everton at home. And it's worth pointing out as well that Tottenham Hotspur away game on the 27th of April is 2 days after the 20th anniversary of Arsenal winning the league at White Hart Lane. So some big fixtures in there, of course, some really interesting games. It's also worth pointing out Mark Mann-Bryans of PA also worked this out. I saw he posted it on Twitter that every single Champions League group stage game is followed by a home Premier League fixture. So that's an interesting one to consider as well. Moving forwards, and Arsenal, as we saw soon after the fixtures were released, had their first bid sent in by the club to West Ham United for Declan Rice. David Ornstein reported that. And then almost immediately after we learned of the first bid going in, Alex Crook of TalkSport reported that that bid had indeed been rejected, which sent kind of all of the media into a bit of a flurry, chasing up links, chasing up sources. I reported that that bid that Arsenal put in was at least a guaranteed amount of £80 million with at least 10 million in add-ons added on to that. My colleague at Football.London, Kai Karnak, reported that the 80 million was split over 6 years of installments, which is kind of mad. I don't really understand if it is indeed true. That I don't really get why Arsenal would think that that would be the right way to approach the potential Rice move, is to split their guaranteed payment over 6 years. I know that we're trying to like bend our way through the financial restrictions, if there are any, which I really don't get why there should be. But yeah, 90 million, at least 90 million pound bid rejected. And there is an expectation that Arsenal will indeed go back with a second bid of over 100 million for Declan Rice. So we will keep you updated, of course. We'll keep talking about this story. We'll keep following it. We did say that it would step up. We did say that the race would kind of kick off in the wake of the UEFA Conference League final, and that has indeed now happened. But Manchester City have also said to got an interest in Declan Rice. That said, what I want to tell you, what I certainly feel about this, is that all of the interest regarding potential rivals, be it Man City, talk of a potential bid from elsewhere, all of this is coming from the West Ham side of things. It is within their prerogative to have this information public, to try and panic Arsenal into bidding significantly higher than they already have done. Arsenal, to my understanding, are remaining relatively chill, but there is an expectation of a new bid going in over 100 million, and Arsenal want to try and get this deal wrapped up as soon as possible. So let's wait and see what today will bring. Maybe even we'll hear some news whilst we're doing the show. That would be very typical. Very, very typical indeed. Now, after that, we heard from Gary Jacob of the Times, I believe it was, that Arsenal had seen their interest in Moises Caicedo cool somewhat. In fact, they even reported that the interest had subsided completely, and that we kind of pulled out of the deal for Moises Caicedo. We heard from Ben Jacobs as well that Arsenal's interest in Moises Caicedo had indeed cooled, and I think that this was kind of the thing that broke the camel's back, if you like, the straw that broke the camel's back in the day for Arsenal fans, who then went into absolute meltdown on social media, absolutely tore apart the Arsenal Twitter sphere. I did a video yesterday evening, which I'll talk about shortly, and then I jumped on with Harry and Sophie onto Harry's Chronicles of a Gooner channel. If you're not subscribed, make sure that you do so. You can go back and watch our show, and we kind of just talked for a bit about kind of the chaos of the day. But I think that the Caicedo news is certainly what tipped a few people over the edge. I kind of understand, obviously, that frustration. I get that. And he's a player that I want to see at Arsenal and have wanted to see at Arsenal. What I would say is that the idea that Arsenal have cooled their interest, it shouldn't come as much of a surprise, I don't think, because the money that Arsenal are investing potentially in Declan Rice, the expectation that Arsenal could go in and spend a similar amount of money. I mean, upwards of £100 million. I mean, there were reports, I think, from Matt Law yesterday that Brighton want as much as £120 million for Caicedo, which is a humongous amount of money for Caicedo. And in which case, I just can't see Arsenal matching 120 million for another midfielder. So I kind of understand if that's the money that we're talking about. We're going to have to wait and see what indeed ends up happening with both Rice and Caicedo, what money we're talking about regarding what they move for. So let's see, and let's wait and be patient on those moves and see what ends up happening. But the latest on both is that Arsenal's interest in Caicedo was cooled at this point, despite reports even as recently as yesterday, we were talking about suggestions that Arsenal had a bid ready, which certainly does not look to be true. But because the interest is seemingly cooled at this point. So, yes, Declan Rice and Caicedo. That is the latest on those two. Then we heard from Fabrizio Romano that Havertz had given the green lights on a potential Arsenal move as now the clubs negotiate between themselves for a price tag. Now, we know, of course, the situation with Chelsea and the June finances that they need to try and get sales on the books before the end of this month. And Arsenal are hoping to try and get a cut price deal for Havertz done. Sami Mokbel of the Mail reported that Arsenal would be willing to go as high as 60 million for Havertz, but Chelsea were looking for something closer to 70, 75 million. I really struggle with a price of over 50 million myself, but if Arsenal end up doing the deal, it'll be interesting to see how and where Havertz ends up fitting in. And we had a good chat on yesterday's Tactical Breakdown show. I was joined by Drew Thompson, who's a German football expert in both Bundesliga football and, of course, is a big follower of Arsenal, as you all well know, and knows and really enjoys what he saw from Kai Havertz at Bayer Leverkusen. We had a good talk about where Kai Havertz would fit into the Arsenal team, whether or not it was kind of rotating with Jesus in the false nine role, whether it was playing with Jesus in the second striker role, or whether it would be playing kind of an 8-10 hybrid position like he did at Bayer Leverkusen. So that all of those things we discussed. We talked about the reality of the deal, what he would bring. We talked about his struggles at Chelsea and whether or not it would be a risk to bring him into Arsenal. We talked about his statistics in comparison to Jesus and Firmino and Paulo Dybala as well. So if you've not yet tuned into our Tactical Breakdown on Kai Havertz after you finish watching today's show, make sure you go back and catch up on that. If you're listening on audio platforms, you'll notice it's not on there. You'll need to hop over to YouTube to watch that, because as the tactical breakdowns are a very visual thing, so it's worth you jumping over to YouTube if you can to watch those tactical breakdowns. Then after the Havertz thing, the day ended with reports. Fabrizio Romano again speaking and saying that Arsenal still remain very keen on Ilkay Gundogan, but Man City have apparently upped their offer. They're looking at a 2-year contract with even an option of a 3rd year now. I've said from the start of this discussion about Ilkay Gundogan that Arsenal's biggest competition was indeed Man City, let alone Barcelona, because they were willing to offer him, I think, a deal in which he would get what he wants, which is a longer-term deal, more commitment from the club. And if he had the choice of staying at City, you would assume that he would want to do that. I don't get the argument of, well, he's won everything now at City. What's the motivation? Trust me, when you win a trophy, you just want to win another one. You want another Champions League, another Premier League. So Ilkay Gundogan, I expect, will stay with Man City, but Arsenal still very much throwing their hat into the ring. Is this one of the reasons why Caicedo's and the interest in Caicedo was called? Potentially, Arsenal seemingly have looked to try and sign Gundogan over Caicedo, considering he's on a free. You can understand why. But I still think it's very unlikely that Arsenal are able to get their hands on Gundogan, but we will see what happens. And then finally, the day ended with Balogun playing for the United States in a 3-0 chaotic game between the United States and Mexico. Red cards galore, goals galore for the States, and Balogun getting his first start. Couldn't get on the score sheet, but seemingly impressed from what I've heard. And the only things I've seen from the game is kind of the chaos brawl with Sergino Dest getting a red card, getting in a confrontation with a number of Mexico players. I think it was Edson Alvarez that kicked it all off in the first place by just slamming him. But the United States beating Mexico. And with Balogun up top, they've got now a striker for the next decade, you have to think, that's going to be their starting option. So they're going to be a side to watch going into the next international tournament, which, of course, is in 2026 regarding the, I know we've got the Euros next year, but the 2026 international tournament at the World Cup between Mexico, United States and Canada. So that is going to be very, very exciting indeed. And that is all of today's stories and all of yesterday kind of rounded up in a nice package. So we're going to go into your thoughts, your feelings on plenty of things in today's chat box right after this. Okay. Firstly, I hope you've had a really good week. I hope that yesterday's stress and kind of chaos didn't ruin it for you. And I hope you were still able to kind of distract yourselves with other things. I know that I was able to do that, even though I was working for most of the day. It's good to have escapes. I always encourage you guys to have escapes. You need to have something else going on in the world other than football and other than Arsenal. It's important to find those escapes. So I recommend that you do so. So let's go into the chat box and tackle some of the questions, tackle some of your thoughts and your theories, your concerns, if you've got any. And yeah, we'll try and tackle as many as we can. Shameful One says, do you think Arsenal are going to sign an out-and-out striker? No, I don't, especially if we're going after Kai Havertz. I think that will fulfill the acquisition of a potential forward option. You know, the fact that you can play as a false nine, the fact that you can play as a second striker and can play with or instead of Gabriel Jesus. And I know, yes, he can play in that hybrid 8-10 position as well, but I think that is going to fulfill Arsenal's desire for a potential forward option during this window. Just Vance says reports suggest that Arsenal have already submitted a second offer of over 100 million for Declan Rice, and I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case. Personally, not heard that because I haven't chased up on that line yet. I'm not working today, thankfully. I'm kind of glad I've got a couple of days off. Still doing the shows, of course, but I've got a couple of days off now, so I I certainly am going to enjoy those. Still going to keep across all things, but not having to write significant number of articles in the next couple of days is going to be a much welcomed break. But yes, I'm sure that that second bid, if not already, has gone in. I also saw a lot of people saying, you know, like the media is really behind things at the moment. Like we're seeing ITKs and people that have got their own sources inside the clubs or whatever, getting things first. I think what I always try to say to people and it's why you see me report very few things on transfers. I'm not the one to really, you know, go hard on the frequency of transfer news because I'd much rather be right than first. And I think, unfortunately, we're blending and bleeding into a world where being first counts more than being right. And that's burned a lot of people. So, yes, there might be people behind the reality of the situation right now because they want to make sure that they've got their sources right and their information right on things. So I wouldn't certainly be undermining that rhetoric because I think it's always important that we get the right information rather than getting as fast as possible. Sam says, Tom, do you have a feeling like me that City are always linked because they want to keep all the players that are good away from their rivals? And that's why they signed Calvin Phillips, the same as potentially going for Declan Rice. Now, without a shadow of a doubt, Sam, and if you look at Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, PSG, the clubs that dominate other domestic leagues across Europe, previously Juventus as well before their issues, then yes, that is what teams do. And that is what Manchester City will, of course, look to do. And also, I think that's what Arsenal want to do. Because if you think about what Arsenal have done since Arteta's come in, since compared to before when Arteta came in, is that we've seen a shift, a significant shift, a shift from signing players from abroad, a shift from signing players that are like, we try and find the little gems. And we still do a couple, you know, now and then. But we're shifting towards looking at Premier League proven talent that we never used to do. You know, Arsene Wenger, we rarely saw Premier League players coming into the team. And if we did, they weren't like game changers for us. Our game changers were Mesut Ozil from Real Madrid or Alexis Sanchez from Barcelona or Aubameyang from Dortmund, Lacazette from Lyon. You know, now if we're spending money, it's on Ben White, Aaron Ramsdale, Zinchenko, Gabriel Jesus, Leandro Trossard. And you look at this summer, Arsenal again, after entering a title race, which no one expected them to do, thanks to a lot of that recruitment, are now moving to try and do a similar thing where they recruit Declan Rice. They go for Kai Havertz. You know, there's that interest in Caicedo that they tried to get him in January. Castagna's been mentioned. You know, there are Joao Cancelo. The list goes on. Arsenal are really trying to shift their way towards bringing in Premier League proven players to get us moving ahead. That's what we want to see. Vakian says, we still need a centre-back and a right-back, but haven't seen many concrete links for these positions. Who do you think we'll get in these areas? I think we have seen quite a few, actually. You know, Simican, Sasha Bowie, Fresneda, Castagna. And what you've got to remember as well is that you've got to remember as well, the mother-in-law's ringing me. That's not good. But what I think is important to remember is, hold on, I need to reply to this. Otherwise, you guys know it is. You can't leave the mother-in-law on red. But when it comes to where was I? My head's completely gone. We need, so we've been linked to Castagna, we've been linked to Cancelo, Bowie, we've been linked to Fresneda. I think that one or the other is really important because we've got Ben White, who can cover at that right-sided centre-back role. Tomiyasu is still in the team. You've brought Kivior in, who showed what he could do in that right centre-back position. If Arsenal are able to get one of a right-sided centre-back or a right-back, that I think is going to be the most important thing regarding, it's going to be the most important thing regarding that defensive area. So we need to make sure that we move for at least one defender on that right-hand side. And if Kieran Tierney moves on, then you need to be looking at bringing in at least one left-back as well. NVR says, is Kai really that better than Eddie Nketiah? Other than being techie, what is he superior at? It's definitely not goal scoring. Might as well give Eddie 200 grand a week. I know, NVR, you're not the biggest fan of Kai Havertz. What I would say is, for the people that are really, really gunning for Kai Havertz, you're brave. I respect your bravery. I really do. And I really hope that you're going to be around to hold your hands up if he comes into Arsenal and does well. I really hope that's going to be the case. I also hope if he joins that you're going to hope that he's going to be successful as well, and that the pride of your opinion prior to this is not going to endure and instead be more reflective of the situation. Let's go to... I should answer the question. Physically, I think Havertz is better. He's not actually like Nketiah in any way, shape or form. Nketiah is your, play in the 6-yard box, get on the end of chances, finisher. That's what Eddie Nketiah is. He's very limited, I think, in what Eddie Nketiah has. Havertz, far more versatile, false 9, second striker, hybrid 8-10, far more creative, far more physical, threat in the box, threat aerially as well. You look at the goals he scored for Bayer Leverkusen in the box with crosses. His heading was really good there. And if we can add that and revive that level of form that we saw at Bayer Leverkusen, then we're in a really good chance to get a good player through the door as well and revive that potential that he had. Rev says, Tom, I'm not surprised if we don't end up buying Caicedo, as we are spending a lot on Rice. Best case scenario is we will end up getting, which I think would be a better value for money option anyway. Yoni says there is a legitimate chance City gets Rice while Chelsea gets Caicedo. Then what? We'll cross that bridge if we ever have to, Yoni. Until then, it's pointless. It's pointless me talking about a hypothetical scenario of complete chaos, which it would be, until it happens. I won't know how I feel. I won't know what to think until that happens. So it's like when people say, if Arteta fails next season, are you going to want him out? And I'm like, I've got to see what happens. We've got to see I can't talk about a hypothetical scenario like that without experiencing it and seeing what happens. Wes says, quite often with Arsenal, you don't know who's coming in. And even if you do know, we are heavily linked with, rarely end up getting those players. So let's just wait and see. And that's why I think it's so brave of some people to say, like, Edu out at this point. So brave of people to jump on and do videos with the words like embarrassing. I really think it's really going to be a difficult kind of place to come back from, unless you're very apologetic, very humble. I just can't get the idea of being so anti-Arsenal right now after the season we've had, after the recruitment that we've done, after the position that we've put ourselves in, after putting a world record English bid, it seems, for Declan Rice this summer. It's going to be very interesting to see how quickly people suddenly spin their opinions and spin their views on things, if indeed we end up having a very good window. But I respect your bravery. I really do. Dr. Funky Punk says, hey, Tom, do you reckon the FFP rules are limiting how much we're able to offer for players like Rice, and why we've apparently pulled out the Caicedo deal? If they are, I mean, who have FFP burned? Like, which big club have FFP done anything to? Who is it scared away from doing anything? It's very difficult to see that, It's very difficult to see us being able to not comply with FFP based upon what other clubs have done and not been punished. Stephen says, are we saying that everyone in the current Chelsea squad is poor because of form? I think they have been really poorly managed. On previous talent, Havertz could be a gem that Arteta reproduces. I'm hopeful. I think that not everyone in that Chelsea squad is poor. I think, obviously some players are not as good as others, but I think that a lot of that Chelsea team has been affected by bad management, bad coaching, an unstable environment, absolute chaos regarding a managerial situation, a bloated squad, no consistency, no stability. It's very difficult. And when Thomas Tuchel was there, Thomas Tuchel got a lot out of Kai Havertz, went on to win a Champions League with him scoring in that final against Manchester City. So, you know, under a good coach, what he's capable of producing. But at the moment, Chelsea is such a hectic, ridiculous environment that it's very difficult to make judgments on players that play there, which is why I kind of look towards the Bayer Leverkusen time that he spent there, especially that final season where he got 12 goals and 6 assists, when he played as an attacking midfielder or he played as a centre forward at times and got some really good performances and showed what his talent was as well. Andre Brown says, to give Chelsea 60 million for a player that nobody else would pay over 50 for while giving Chelsea money to spend would be crazy. It's crazy if it doesn't work. If it works really well, it's not crazy at all. What I would say is that it's an absolute risk. You know, there's no doubt in my mind, and as I've put that out there on a number of occasions when talking about Havertz, is that it's a risk. The signing is a risk, and it's completely on Arteta, because Arteta will be the driving force behind this one. Arteta will be the one that says that he thinks that he can get the best out of Kai Havertz, that he can turn him into a player of real quality. So if Havertz ends up being a massive flop for Arsenal, if indeed we do sign, you know, that in itself is going to be very much a finger pointed towards Arteta and go, well, the club have backed you with the player that you wanted to get in Havertz and it's not worked out. But I'm hopeful that he is, because record tells us that he's improving players individually. His man management of individual coaching wise has been really good. In terms of the in-game management, that leaves more to be desired and hopefully something he can improve on. But Jesus has got better, Zinchenko's got better, Saliba's got better, White's got better, Gabriel's got significantly better, Martinelli and Saka have got better, Ødegaard's got significantly better, Xhaka got significantly better. He has improved so much about what the individual players. And if he wants to bring a player in, I am inclined to agree that that is the right choice forward, because he's not given me an indication that that is the wrong one. When Arsenal have tended to invest money and big money in players, only Fabio Vieira stands as really the only example. And even then, he wasn't a starter as all the other ones we've really invested in, like White, Ødegaard, Ramsdale, Zinchenko, Jesus, the starters, the players that are getting regular game time. He has proven to be able to show that that was a good investment for the club to make. Zeus always dropping in a super chat, very much appreciated. Loves getting his comments read out. From Caicedo to Castagna, only Arsenal, make it make sense. City win trophies and we don't dress it up as success. Easiest decision of Rice's life. Let's see. Let's see if you're wrong, Zeus. Let's see if you're wrong. Raul says, how many quality players have flopped at Chelsea? They don't have the environment to grow a young player. Keep believing in Mikel Arteta and Edu. Ashish says, if we want to sign both Rice and Caicedo, we need to first get rid of all the players who are not in Arteta's plan. If we can't do that, then we're always going to be short on one or two positions. And he's right. There's a lot of time left in this window, and there's a lot of players that Arsenal need to shift. And maybe it turns out that Arsenal couldn't move for Caicedo early in the market because the money we were putting down for Declan Rice prevented that. And we knew that we needed to move players on and guarantee those players were going to be gone before we could move. But we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Leeds guy says, who is a tougher player to improve, Nicola Pepe or Kai Havertz? You'd have to assume it's Pepe because, of course, Arteta inherited Pepe. He would be choosing to sign Havertz because he believes Havertz suits the system of what he wants to do. Whereas inheriting a player like Pepe or Tierney, and it proves that, they're not going to fit what they want, makes it much harder to improve or, improve those players if they don't suit what you want from a player in the position that they play. If he signs Havertz, it'll be because he believes that is going to be a player that he can improve and suit the system that he's developing. Rev says, Tom, would you be happy with only Havertz and Gabby Jesus in our attack if we were to sell both Nketiah and Balogun? Yeah, because I think you got Trossard as well. I think Jesus, Havertz, Trossard, 3 really good options for that centre-forward position. The Rona report says, Tom's blind faith in Mikel Dictator is admirable, but respectfully, sometimes slightly delusional. Hey, look, I think it's really disrespectful, to be honest, the whole dictatorship side of things of Arteta. How people can still have the guile to turn around and really try and undermine Mikel Arteta's possession based upon what he's done at this club, I find laughable, really laughable. But, you do you. SB says, do you think Raw Waters will be integrated into the first team squad next season? I'm not sure how. The only way that I see it happening is, of course, if we're in a situation where... if we're in a situation where we don't manage to sign one of the fullbacks or defenders that we want to sign this summer, that's where I see the route opening up for him. But if we sign someone, very difficult to see that being the case. Mickey says, I think the Rice soda rumours were just a load of rubbish. We wanted either of them, and Rice is the better option. Havertz is a genius strategy. I've had several interchanges going on in my head since yesterday. It's almost like we're almost trying to convince ourselves, though, at points, isn't it? Like I feel I do it sometimes. But if it happens, I'm excited, I'm intrigued, I'm curious to how it might work if we sign Havertz. So I want to give it the time of day. I want to give it the opportunity to see. I'm not certainly going to rule it out. But I look forward to seeing if it does happen, what he's able to achieve with Kai Havertz. UCAS says, Tom Canton, you don't know football. I know. It's almost like people wouldn't employ me. Yoni says, Tom, what do you think of Kone from Mönchengladbach? I think he's better than Lavia. He could be acquired for 50 million. Yeah, I mean, potentially. I think Kone is proven last season, along with Thuram, two of those, very, very good midfielders. I think that Arteta and Arsenal at the moment are still certainly looking at kind of Premier League proven players at the moment. That's what they want to bring in. That's what they want to fill the squad with. So they're less keen, it seems, on those players from abroad unless they're really sure on them, like they seemingly were with Mudryk. So let's wait and see. Raul says, Havertz tactical breakdown. Did you not watch Havertz tactical breakdown that was out yesterday? We've already done it. You can go and watch that tactical breakdown because it is already out on the channel. It is the last live upload before this one. So please do go and give it a watch. Henry says, if we haven't actually been in for Caicedo this summer, this Gundogan thing is interesting as we're still going to need another midfielder after Rice. And this is what's true. The truth and the facts of Arsenal summer is that A, we haven't approached Caicedo this summer. B, we have made an offer to Gundogan. C, we have made a bid that's been rejected and are expected, if not have already, to have placed a second bid for Declan Rice. Gundogan and Rice are seen as above the Caicedo situation. That's evident from the way we've approached these three players in different ways. One of them we have not approached. So, there you go. Raul, oh my God, it's already out. Yes, it is. It is. You can go and watch it, mate. Go and watch it. Charlie says, Havertz is a quality player. We should be getting him cheaper than 50 million, though, in my opinion. I think the price is the biggest thing for a lot of people. I think seeing that 70 million pounds that Chelsea have wanted have really turned people off. If we were talking about getting Havertz for 40 million, maybe it'd be different. But the money is, I think, really a big, big problem, as well as the club that he plays for. I think that is also a bit of an issue as well. Remember, it's funny because Arsenal have got a history of signing players that where they were at, it didn't work out. Some of the best players in Arsenal's history, weren't seen as kind of like, oh, that's strange. Why they didn't have the best of times there. Think about Thierry Henry at Juventus. Think about Dennis Bergkamp at Inter Milan. Think about Alexis Sanchez at Barcelona. It didn't always work out for the players that we signed, and there were high-profile players that moved to those big clubs with big reps. And then when they moved to Arsenal and they fit into the system that suited them, they flourished. So that's why I'm always very much on the whole side of, okay, I might not be keen on this at first. And there's been players that I've not necessarily been keen on. Aaron Ramsdale, for a lot of people, Aaron Ramsdale was a big no. So much so that they completely sacrificed any self-respect and went and abused him on social media. Was that you? Are you watching? Are you one of those people that sent abusive things on his Instagram? Be ashamed if you were. And then obviously all of a sudden we've seen the improvement of Aaron Ramsdale. We've seen what ultimately he's been able to bring into this team, which has been a lot. So let's wait and see what we see happen with someone like, let's see what happened with someone like Havertz, if indeed the deal does end up happening. Franklin Goodwin says, we've never signed a player from Chelsea that has been a success. I think that... oh, you can go away. Let's go to... in terms of like the whole Chelsea thing, just to tackle that for a second, I think when it comes to the club, there's this kind of PTSD attitude, if you like. There's this PTSD element of, I think, the Czech, the David Luiz, the Williads of this world. You can't just assess a player based upon the club they came from, you know. And I like Jorginho, as people are pointing out very, very rapidly in the chat box, a lot. Jorginho has been good. Jorginho has been, for me, a really important signing for Arsenal. And you can't just attach a stigma to a player because of the club that they come from. It doesn't make any sense to do that at all. No sense whatsoever. So I don't buy into the Chelsea thing's not worked, and for that reason, we can't ever sign a player from Chelsea again. I've seen people suggest it about Man City, like with the Zinchenko and Jesus things, the idea of this mental block of trying to get over, we can't sign another player from City. We're trying to catch them. How can we catch them if we're signing players they're willing to let go? I can tell you the reason why. Because what they did at that club is not necessarily a signal of what they're going to do at Arsenal. A different environment, a different coach, different teammates, someone with different ideas, a refurbishment, a refresh. You got, as I agree with Leeds Gunner here, you've got to let a player stand on his own merits. You've got to let a player do what they can do. And I'm not going to prejudge just because of the club that they come from. I think it's really ignorant to do that. Let's go to boom. Sam says, get Kai swap with Bayern for Kimmich or Goretzka. Either of Kimmich or Goretzka would be great additions to the Arsenal team, no doubt. But Kai Havertz, I'm trying to do the mental gymnastics of how you do that. But let's wait and see. Wes, Tom, please tell me that the mother-in-law is still not on hold. I've got a text saying, sorry, I didn't mean to call you. So there you go. It's like no one calls me at 8 a.m. Everyone knows the rule. You can't call me at 8 a.m. We're doing a show. Clive says, Havertz is such an interesting player. The level at his best is elite. If Trossard can play the false nine, so can Havertz. I mean, if Clive talks, we listen. It's the rule. It's how it works, is it not? I thought that's how it works. I think I agree, and I've said it for a time before even Clive entered my mind, that I'm open to this idea of I was about to say I'm open to this idea of Clive at false nine. I'm open to this idea of seeing Havertz in the Arsenal team because I just think that there is so much untapped potential there. There's so much kind of mystery about this. There's so much that wasn't dialed in on, at Chelsea, and what we saw at Bayer Leverkusen is a real exciting example of someone that I think can add so much. I love the physicality and the verticality of it. I love the versatility of it. And I think that it's a bit of a mystery box, if you like. And sometimes you can get burned. Sometimes you can get burned with them. And it's absolutely, as I maintain, it's a risk, especially at the money that we're talking about. But I'm excited. And Clive says, not knowing is the fun. And that, I think, is what I'm trying to buy into with the Havertz thing and why I'm certainly not going to be one of those that completely rules out a potential move in the future for him. No, she's not a Charlton fan. She's a West Ham fan. So she had a very good time with the Europa Conference League final. Very sad to see Declan Rice leave this summer. Keith says, morning, Tom. Question. Sorry, I can't see us getting our targets now that City are in the frame. I just don't get why we can't get the deals over the line. It's disrespectful to try to lower the price just to do it. Keith, what I would say is that first offers very rarely get accepted. I do have personally a bit of an issue with the way in which we've approached the first offer. I think if it's true that we've made these 6 installment offer to West Ham, it's never good to kind of, I don't like, I saw Tim Stillman tweet yesterday that he finds it difficult to use words like insulting or embarrassing or derisory when we're talking about levels of money. And I tend to agree. I think it's very strange to use these words of embarrassing. We're talking about this level of money. I think you need to be more professional, when you're talking about that level of money or when reports are coming out or when the understanding of that, because this is like, in the context of the social environment that we're in, calling these levels of money embarrassing, it's difficult. It's difficult. Stuart says, Tom, why do you think young youth players are wanting to leave Arsenal for other teams that seem to have worse pathways to the first team? Unfortunately, I think money is always going to be a factor. Young players can be tempted away by money. I think that also the pathway at Arsenal isn't necessarily that obvious, right now. Yes, we've seen Saka and Smith Rowe and Nketiah and Nelson, get opportunities. But as Arsenal get higher up the table, and you look at Man City as the example, Man City aren't bringing through youth. The only player they've really brought through is Phil Foden. They've signed young players, but they're not really bringing through youth. So I think it's relatively normal. The percentages of players that actually make it at a senior level after coming through an academy at a Premier League club at the top level is very, very low. Very, very low indeed. So Lou says, with no European football and the signings Chelsea are making, I'm afraid that they will take the league by storm this season. They will challenge for the league and we will struggle because of our awful signing. We haven't even signed anyone yet. And yet they're apparently awful. Cole Palmer's not come through, Alex, by the way. Rico Lewis, again, he's got minutes, but he's not. I don't see how he's going to get loads more time, but maybe we see him get more minutes next season. But it doesn't look like he's going to be able to do that with the Ake, Akanji, Diaz, what they've done. But going back to that point, that question just caught my eye. If you were afraid of Chelsea last season, I think you were very underwhelmed in the end of what season they had. There's a lot of question marks about Chelsea. I'm certainly keeping my cards close to my chest regarding how I feel about Chelsea for next season, because it's impossible to really make a strong prediction on things. So I'm not sure whether or not we are inclined to think that Chelsea are going to suddenly have an amazing season, because they spent 600 million last year and look where they finished, in the bottom half. So it's very difficult to know what's going to end up happening. We've got a couple more questions we can take, and then we'll wrap up. John says, why do you think fans are so negative during transfer windows? I think Edu and Arteta deserves our trust. I agree with the second part of this. That I think they have earned the right for us to see what happens. That's what I think they've earned. I think they have earned the right to for us to wait and see. We can be critical, we can assess things as they go on, for sure, but I think that Edu and Arteta have earned the right to just, let's see how the window plays out, let's see what business we do, let's see where we are when the season starts. That's what I'm waiting to see. And I think that when it comes to looking at what the club is capable of achieving, all we've done under these two is move in a positive direction. We had to put the brakes on the slide when they first came in, and that meant that we were like eighth, and we were kind of putting the brakes on the slide, clearing players out, rebuilding the squad, overhauling the wage structure, the age structure, all of that stuff. And then when we're trying to push forwards now, when we're trying to move to the areas of competing for titles, competing for Champions League, domestic cups, we are moving in that direction. There's no evidence to suggest that we're not. So for me, they've deserved the time. In terms of why do I think they're so negative, it's really easy to be negative. It's a lot harder to be constructive and grounded and objective, especially in content production, especially in that realms. I could sit here and throw thumbnails and use words like embarrassing, or, I've done things in the past. I've used thumbnails like Arteta should be sacked after the Villarreal defeat, after the Man City 5-0 brawling. And it was really easy to do those shows, just to kind of give in to the raw tribal anger that I felt after those games. It's really easy to be angry. It's really easy to be sweary and abusive and, get on boards, what I would describe as hyperbolic, support. It's really easy to do that because, puff your chest out. We're Arsenal. That sort of thing. It's really easy to do that. It's not easy to try and do what I would describe as doing things in what I think is the grounded and the objective way, and then throwing your hands up and saying, I was wrong on this. So hard to do that. So hard to do. I was wrong. I was really wrong on this. And, for me, I think we should be signing Caicedo this summer. He might go to Chelsea and be terrible. I'll have to throw my hands up and say I was wrong. In the same sense, if I was like, at the end of kind of the Mudryk saga, I was like, you know what? I think we should just throw 100 million euros in and get this deal done. Just get the player in. I was wrong. Thank goodness we didn't throw that 100 million euros on Mudryk. And I'm like, fair play for Arteta and Edu to turn around and go, you know what, this is getting out of hand. We can't go this high. The numbers are ridiculous. Let's pull out. And I'm not sitting here going, can't get our priorities. Can't sign Mudryk. We wanted him, couldn't get him. I'm actually like, no, fair enough for pulling out of that deal. Fair enough for not being, overcommitted in a deal that went way beyond what Way beyond it is. Chunho says the bashing in this chat on Tom is mad. It's the transfer window. I'm used to it. It's what happens. As long as people are respectful, I don't care. If you disagree with me, that's absolutely fine. But no issue if you disagree with my point of view. You got to do it respectfully. I don't mind, in that sense. You got to be able to do it in a respectful way. But personally, I haven't got time for the abuse. You have in my opinion, if you create a community, you have a responsibility to look after that community, to kind of mold it in a way which you feel is the way forwards for it. And I feel personally it's one of respect, and it's one of making sure that opinions are heard if they are done in a respectful way and that they're not done in an abusive way. And it's still hard. It's still hard to be told you're wrong. It's still hard. And trust me, how many times have I done phone-in shows with you guys and encouraged people to come on that disagree with me? I do it all the time. And we really struggle, don't we? We really struggle to get the people on that really do vehemently disagree and that can throw a comment into a chat box and say, Tom, you're talking rubbish. Tom, this is rubbish. Edu out, Arteta out. But to come on and actually have a conversation and put across coherent points and arguments explaining to me why I'm wrong and why they're right, we rarely see it happen, if ever. And even then when we do, we tend to have a really good discussion and end up agreeing on a few points anyway. So that's what I mean. And for instance, let's take this comment from the Rona report. Giving Dictator the benefit of the doubt, what we're saying is success looks like for the season for me, if not the league, and the second in a trophy and 2 is only acceptable thing. Rona, I encourage you, drop me a DM. Drop me a DM on Instagram. Drop me a DM on Twitter. Drop me a DM anywhere. Come on the show and talk to me. Tell me why Arteta is a quote-unquote dictator. Come and tell me this, because that's what I want to hear. I want to hear the difference of opinion. I want to hear your thoughts. And we're going to be doing plenty of phone-in shows across the season. I might do one today. I'm off today. I might do one in the afternoon. Let's wait and see. But it is a Friday. It's a weekday. It's a work day. So maybe it's less good time-wise. But I really encourage you to disagree with me if you want, but you got to back it up, guys. You got to back yourselves. I know I don't like the whole "we're Arsenal Football Club," puff your chest out, speak in a grunty voice. I get it, but it's really inspiring. But you got to back it up with reason. You really do. Sam says, Tom, you got to speak to my friend Charlie. He's always negative about Arsenal. And look, I understand why people can be negative. I understand why, we've longed for a title for so long. We've been without a title for so many years. And we're constantly told to be more patient and just wait and just see what happens. And it must get so angry and frustrating. And I get that. But it's sport. You're not entitled to anything. You can't have an expectation of winning the league. You can aim for it. But in my view, you can't expect it because it's sport. Otherwise, that sport would be proper boring, wouldn't it? That's not how it works. So, yeah, there you go. Have we got time for a couple more? Do we want a couple more questions? I think we do want a few more questions, don't we? Neil says, do Brighton really want 120 million for Caicedo? Wow, no chance any club plays that, and fair play to them, but the player will be annoyed if he doesn't get a move as he was promised. And he was promised a move, but I saw reports yesterday, I think it was Matt Law, reported that Brighton are holding out for 120 million pounds. So I tweeted saying, wow, Declan Rice and Moises Caicedo for 240 million pounds. How much money are we going to start spending on players? And the thing is, you can't blame Brighton and West Ham for asking for these levels of money. You can't blame them, can you? Because clubs like Chelsea have paid it. Clubs like Chelsea have gone to Enzo Fernandez and paid 100+ million quid for a guy who's relatively unproven, that's had a decent year or two in the Portuguese league. 100 million quid plus. A transfer record for the Premier League. Who can blame Brighton? And, because Brighton have got a player that I think is better than Enzo Fernandez. I think Caicedo is better than Fernandez. And so because of that, Brighton can turn around and, well, if he's been sold for this amount, the same was what Shakhtar did with Anthony. Anthony is a deplorable footballer, like a really average footballer. And yet Man United paid 100 million euros odd to Ajax to get him. And yet, so when anyone else is selling Mudryk, do you know what I mean? Like that, I just don't get it. I mean, I do get it, but I just can't get it. I really can't. I should do a quick check, because I always like to do this whenever I've said. So I'm assuming let's rock and roll, says the Rona report. So I'm assuming that means I must have a message on social media. We're doing a live check. Have we received a message on any of our socials? I'm searching. I'm doing this quick search. Have we received a DM? I'm struggling. I've not seen one yet. Oh, have we? Oh, no, not the right person. No DM. That's a real shame. It's a real shame. We try again, people. We try again. Maybe the next one will come on. Maybe the next one will. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in. We really appreciate your time. As always, it is very much appreciated. I look forward to having conversations with you tomorrow morning. There may be a phone-in show a little bit later on today. I look forward to it if there indeed is one. I might be jumping on a couple of other shows as well. It's Friday. You've made it to the end of the week. Congratulations. It's always good to reach a Friday. It's good knowing that the weekend is coming up. A couple of days off do us the world of good. Stay safe, stay well, rest, and don't stare at your phone all day. You know, I know it's tempting to do that. I know it's tempting to constantly refresh your feeds and constantly demand more updates. But, you know, try and have a break. Try and take your mind off football if you can, and then come back and watch the show. Always appreciate you doing so. Have a fantastic Friday, people, and I'll see you soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.